instead of paying $100,000 for college, they're like, I'm going to take this money and I'm going to pay that money to people that have actually done something, that have actually built real businesses and made real money in the area that I'm looking to do it in. And those kids are going to be much more successful at 24, while their colleagues are just now getting out of college with a couple $100,000 in debt. I'm willing to make that bet any day. Mentorship is a great way to do it. Access is huge. Just getting around, like, for example, dude, if I wasn't exposed to you, if we didn't have this relationship, I probably wouldn't be in cryptocurrency. I probably would have missed out on a lot of money, right? So the relationships and the access that you have really matter. For me, my theory in investing in alternative investments, such as funds or syndications, it's basically this checkbox, right? Number one, do we have a good horse? It's the horse in the jockey theory. The horse is the asset class. Asset class that we're talking about here is Bitcoin. Well, that's an asset class. That's a horse that I really believe in.
I mean, that's the best performing horse in all of humanity's history, right?
Right. And then the second question comes, who's the jockey, right? Because, for example, I've invested in a few syndications where great horse, great asset class, the jockey is a fucking idiot and f***ed up the deal. So for this deal, it was a no-brainer. You know, I think you're a great jockey or a great manager for that project, and I certainly believe in an asset class. And you know, I'm gonna get $250,000 in write-offs in year one that I need. Pretty so nice, it's like a no-brainer.
Welcome back to another episode of Cypherpunk. Today we're joined by Lucas Pinto, one of my best friends in the whole world. After moving from Brazil to the United States as a child, Lucas built himself up from humble beginnings to become the CEO of the #1 mid-sized real estate team in Seattle, with over $500 million in real estate sales. His journey from bartender to top-performing broker is remarkable, but what's even more interesting is his vision for the future of real estate and wealth creation. Beyond his traditional real estate success, Lucas is deeply involved in cryptocurrency investment and is developing innovative approaches to real estate syndication. With 22 rental properties generating substantial passive income and a keen understanding of both traditional and emerging financial systems, Lucas offers a unique perspective on where the industry is headed. Welcome to the show, my man.
Yeah, man. Good to be here. Quite the setup you guys got. Very cool.
Yeah, Paul went all out, man.
Yeah.
He built us up a nice little studio here.
I love it.
I told him if I'm going to do it, I want to do it big.
Do it big, baby. That's how we do it. I love it.
So let's dive right in here. Your journey from Brazil to becoming a top real estate broker in Seattle is pretty cool. How did growing up in an environment where you witnessed currency collapse shape your views on financial freedom and decentralization?
Yeah, man. So I was born and grew up in Brazil, and I remember being a kid in my dad's office. So my dad was an attorney in Brazil, and he always struggled financially. I remember and I got this story from him about 2 years back. We're having a conversation, and I never knew this, right? But to give you context, he was an attorney for the city. He worked for the city, and the city hasn't paid him in 6 months. So he worked for the government, and the government didn't pay him for 6 months. And I remember being a kid and going in his office and opening one of the drawers and seeing just a shit ton of cash. And I'm like, dude, what is this? And it was the old currency of Brazil.
Oh, wow.
When it collapsed, and he just kept a bunch of the currency that had collapsed.
Some nice toilet paper, I guess.
Some nice toilet paper. That's it. It was useless.
Have you ever been to any of the Bitcoin conferences?
I've never been to a Bitcoin conference.
I think it was like 4 years ago or 3 or 4 years ago in Miami. They had a giant dumpster, and if you went in the dumpster, it was just full of Venezuelan bolivars, just like hundreds of trillions of dollars. Just seeing these paper bills with just 1,000,000,000
and just
$5 trillion.
It serves no purpose. And yeah, man, that was my and at the time in Brazil, and still very much the case. It's a high inflation environment, right? And it gets harder and harder with time. So.
You're one of my few friends that's actually listened to my advice and has been when I talk about Bitcoin and different crypto assets, you've been dollar cost averaging, and now you're starting to see, you're reaping the rewards of that.
Yeah.
Many of my friends are now hitting me up. They're like, what do I buy? Which dog coin, which Ponzi scheme, whatever, but it seems like you really got Bitcoin a lot quicker than most. And maybe that was your experience seeing how multiple fiat currencies had failed. That sits with people differently.
It does, man. I think for me, what happened is, so I remember walking in to your dad's mother-in-law, like the little, guest house, and you were having your poker games there, and you had this room full of computers, and it was hot as hell in this fucking room. And I'm like, Matt, what the hell is this? This was back in 2015, 2016, I think it was. And I'm like, what is this? He's like, oh, I'm mining money. I'm like, what do you mean, bro? He's like, Bitcoin. And that was the first real exposure I got to it. And back then you're like, oh, trust me, just buy a few. And I bought 3 Bitcoins, I think, within that week. I think it was like a couple $1,000 back then. And I bought 3. And I made the mistake of selling one of them.
Oh, really?
When it hit like back in like 2017, 2018, it hit 20,000. I sold one of them, but I kept the rest. But I on that point, I think what happened, and the reason why I got into Bitcoin at first, the reason why I bought it is because I trusted you, right? I didn't understand it. I didn't know what it was, but I trusted that you knew. But I think most people, when they get into cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin, they get in to get rich. Yeah. There's no BSing. I had no idea what I was doing. I wanted to get rich. But as you buy the currency and you watch it for a little while, you start to become interested. And you're like, okay, what is this? And first I bought, and then I became... then I started my discovery process, right? I went out and read the books that you recommended to read. I did some research on the history of money, the history of currency. And the deeper down the rabbit hole you go is when you're like, this system is fucked.
There's a famous quote, and Satoshi actually talked about this early on. I think it was like 2010, 2009, 2011 on the forums. And a lot of the people that were in the community at the time talked about this. And they said that like, the quote goes something like, Bitcoin is it on the surface, it looks like just a get rich quick Ponzi scheme. But like, as you peel back the layers, you realize it's like one of the most innovative inventions of humankind and ingenuity of bringing all of these different things together. Understanding of the history of money, of contracts and law, and private property rights and cryptography and game theory. And the game theory was built into Bitcoin, that based off of the fundamentals of this idea of absolute scarcity, you'd have this crazy price appreciation because it is truly one of the very first things. It's probably the only thing. I mean, it is the initial discovery of absolute scarcity, right? There's no other asset. Even stocks, right? They'll print more shares. Yeah. Whatever it is, they'll dilute you. Yeah. But Bitcoin itself as money is this idea of absolute scarcity, right? Even gold, even precious metals, right? They can, I think they found a vein in China in the past week where they found like, another $1 trillion worth of gold or whatever under the ground or something along those lines. Or, soon Elon will be on an asteroid mining gold. And, so even in the universe, there's not absolute scarcity really with anything. Yeah. So Bitcoin is a man-made invention and system, that just operates and nobody controls it. It's decentralized. It's this beautiful invention of absolute scarcity. But yeah, I mean, once, I tell everybody that once you own some, then, you'll start getting notifications and, oh, I got some of that. Oh, here's an article about it. Let me read about it. Or, hey, there's a book here. Let me listen to this book, or let me listen to this podcast. So that's what I tell everybody. Just get a little bit and then you'll start caring, right? Because you own it.
Let me ask you this, because I thought about this. So you mentioned that I'm one of your few friends that actually took your advice. And I've been dollar cost averaging now for a long time, especially during the bear market. I went heavy during the bear market. I would get a real estate paycheck and I would just go all in it. Like, because over time I became more and more confident on the asset class, right? And I've noticed the same thing for when I give advice to people, my friends or realtors on my team. Like, I've sat down with these people and I'm like, I'll help you set up an account. I'll help you pick out, what to buy. Put 1% of your net worth in there. And probably 95% of people don't do it. Yeah. Why do you think that is?
I went to a, Marlon, he's one of my good friends. And, you know, I think one time we went to like a Gary Vee conference.
Okay.
And I think you're going to appreciate this because it's so true. I mean, and, you know, one thing that I respect about you is you have extreme personal accountability, and most people don't. But Gary Vee was talking, you know, and he gave this speech where he's like, listen, I can tell you guys exactly what to do to be successful. And he literally told everybody to their face, he's like, 99% of you aren't going to fucking do it. You're going to keep buying my tickets and showing up at my speeches and not do what I'm telling you to do.
I'll keep collecting the checks.
That's literally what he said. I mean, you know, and that really stuck with me. I'm like, wow, like, you know, and he just hit the nail on the head with that. It was like, it's so true because all those people are literally, most people are just going to keep going to his conferences and stuff, and they're not going to actually take the advice and utilize it, right? And it's the same thing when it comes to investing and developing habits, but it's like anything else. You know, we all have our struggles. We all do certain things well, certain things not well, but it really is a habit, you know, dollar cost averaging, doing these things. You know, I teach my kids with their allowance. Hey, let's take, you know, a portion of your allowance. Here's a little bit of it you can spend. Here's a little bit that you can invest. Here's a little bit for savings of, you know, something you want to save up for, right?
Yeah.
We create these different buckets. So I think for a lot of people, just get off zero, right? I mean, like that's like, you know, the main argument that's been going around for the past couple of years is like Bitcoin is this basically this insurance or this hedge against the status quo of the system, right?
Yeah.
And as you've seen, people grow up with these systems and they think that they're infallible and they're going to last forever,
right?
But when humans get behind the printing press and they're able to just press that button to print money, and to get out of all your problems, it's a broken system.
It's a broken system.
Even with the best of intentions, right? Hell is paved on the road of best intentions, and all governments over time are going to hit that printer button. They're going to print money and they're going to debase, you know, the people, the savers in the economy, grandma who's saving up for her kid's college fund, you know, and they're going to, you know, it's sad. It really sucks to see that. And, you know, I had a friend from Venezuela, and, you know, he basically, his grandmother, like literally she lost her life savings, you know, like within a week, and it happened quick, right? Because hyperinflation is like, okay, you know, you lose 10% of your dollar, 10% of your value overnight or over the week, right? It's like, so imagine having, you know, the ability to buy a house, and a week later it can buy a car, and a week later it can barely get you a plane ticket to America. And that's what happened. You know, it's a scary thing and it's sad. Yeah.
I think you recommended one book to me that really brought, I think it's called The History of Money. Is that correct?
There's a couple different books. One is the Bitcoin Standard. The Bitcoin Standard is a fantastic book. So maybe, was it Saifedean Ammous? Was that the book you're thinking of? The History of Money, they're shelling out. It's an article by Nick Szabo. Fantastic. Let's see. What other books did I recommend to you? But trying to think.
I don't remember, but what I do remember about the book is that it went pretty far back in the history of currency and how, you know, the Roman Empire started to dilute their currency, and that like understanding the history of money really brought things into perspective for me, because I'm like, oh shit, this is the same cycle playing out. This is right. This is the same playbook.
It's the same playbook.
And we're actually overdue for the collapse, according to history, right? The collapse of the U.S. dollar. And so
it might have been Layered Money by Nick Bhatia or David Graeber's Debt the First 5,000 Years or something like that. But I'm pretty sure Safe goes over that in the Bitcoin Standard as well.
Bitcoin Standard is great. I read that one.
Okay, it might have been in that book, right? He talks about history. It might have been in there. He's got the Fiat Standard now, the Bitcoin Standard, principles of I think it's macroeconomics. I mean, there's a lot of great books that Safe's put together. But yeah, there's quite a long reading list if you want to go down the rabbit hole. But there's Peter McCormick has a great 10 series intro podcast. I did a podcast recently with the editor of the Bitcoin magazine, Aaron Van Weerdum. He came over from the Netherlands, and we did a 10-episode series talking about more so about the history of Bitcoin and all of the cryptography, less so on the money. It does touch on money. It does touch on, you know, the type of economic systems that have occurred over the past 100 to 200 years and leading up to the creation of Bitcoin. So there's a lot of you know, different angles you can hit it at. And you know, once you start peeling back those layers, I mean, there's just there's so many rabbit holes to go down. Whether it's cryptography research,
and
whether it's game
you
theory,
lose so much
money.
trust in the system, and then once that happens, it's like yeah.
I mean, you know, the average lifespan of a fiat currency, I think, is like 50 years or something like that. So historically, that's been the average lifespan. Like most, I think 99.9% of fiat currencies have failed over time, right? So we've gone through different phases, whether it's France or Italy or Spain being or the Great Britain being the de facto reserve currency of the world, right? But the rough period of time that lasts is 50, 60 some odd years.
Yeah.
I think we're since 1971 was when Nixon took us off the gold standard, and the U.S. dollar is now officially fiat currency, where it's existing just without any backing whatsoever, right? Without any precious metal or any commodity that you can exchange that for. So the fiat system in America has existed since 1971. We're about 55 years into that, 53 years, 54 years into that experiment. So,
and we're starting to see the wheels come off the wagon a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, we've the wheels are slowly, and the idea of what they want to do is just very slowly debase the currency, right? It's like 2% inflation. That's the target rate. Yeah. But what ends up happening is, there's a crisis or there's COVID or there's something that happens, and it gives them a convenient excuse to just
print more.
They printed something like $20,000 per every person, baby, child in the United States, and gave everybody a $1,200 check. Yeah. And what happened to the other $19,000 they printed per person?
If you look at a chart for the last 4 to 5 years, how much they printed, it's kind of scary. It's kind of scary.
Yeah, I mean, I think they increased the money supply by about 50%, 2 years. The same amount, the previous 50 years was X, and then just within 2 years it was doubled, right?
Yeah.
Everyone's you read the newspaper, they're we don't expect there to be inflation. It's if you study Austrian economics and your libertarian philosophy, you're of course there's going to be inflation. I mean, you just doubled the money. You just almost doubled the money supply, right? Of course.
Yeah.
So very wild. What do you think about real estate? The combination between crypto and real estate. I think it was maybe a year or two ago. I wrote an article for a local paper here. It was I proposed using Bitcoin as collateral on certain loans. My thought was if somebody's a risky person to take a loan, or they don't have a long credit history, I really feel like Bitcoin pledged as collateral, as a pristine collateral asset, could play a huge role in okay, well, we're gonna hold your $10,000 worth of Bitcoin as collateral, and then once you pay off your loan over time, we'll release that back to you, or you do a refinance, Bitcoin appreciates 10x, right?
Yeah.
Now it's 100,000 of collateral. You can refi, take 90% of that out, kind of thing, right?
I think that will eventually happen. I think it's just a matter of time. I think the challenge with that is Bitcoin's still a little too volatile for banks to feel comfortable. And I think the 30-year mortgage was a brilliant thing created by the United States that they love to sell, right? There's this really good book by Bridger Pennington Sr., who he launched a fund that IPO'd for, I think it was $20 billion by the time that IPO. It's kind of crazy. And he talks about how the best thing that the U.S. has invented, the best thing they've ever created, was the U.S. dollar. And they want to give out and dish out as much of it as possible. And a 30-year mortgage is a brilliant way to do that, right? So I think I love the concept of that. I think it'll be a little while before we see it, because I think Bitcoin's still too volatile for a bank to feel comfortable doing that. But can't you take out? Can you borrow against your Bitcoin?
You can, yeah.
Okay.
There are products that are doing that now.
Okay.
Where you can borrow against your Bitcoin, absolutely. And I think as the volatility, I mean, every cycle we see less and less volatility. But as Bitcoin is fairly priced into the market, right? There's extreme volatility there, of course, because it's a new type of money, a new type of treasury reserve asset, et cetera. As it gets priced into the market, there's that volatility, right?
Yeah.
But over time, those increases will be less and less as it gains more general adoption and people understand it better.
And you get more institutional investors involved and bigger players. I agree.
We're seeing that. I mean, we're starting to really see that with MicroStrategy essentially turning themselves into a Bitcoin bank, and we've got ETFs and we've got all these new products now. So I think we're starting to see the beginning of it. My thought was more just hey, this person. The normal person can go through the process. They've got a 700 credit score, 800, whatever. They're able to put, the down payment. But then there's people that are new lenders that, maybe they have a 650 credit score, right?
Yeah.
But just to get them over that edge, hey, you got $10,000 to $20,000 of Bitcoin, pledge that to the contract. And, and we'll give
I think it's brilliant.
I think that's,
I think if someone hasn't invented a company like that, they should, because I think they would do really, really well.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of real estate is so outdated. It's such a fragmented industry, dude. Like the concept of title and escrow is just like, you know what I mean? Like it's such an old school industry in a lot of ways, and it's due for a revamp, you know? And I think something like that would be brilliant. You know?
I've thought about that for a while. I mean, the process is just so outdated, and to be able to just put people's titles on a blockchain and like quickly anybody can verify that
for a fraction of the fucking cost.
You don't have to wait.
Title and escrow. I own part of a title and escrow company. They're very profitable, dude. Yeah. Their profit margins are crazy.
Like 5 to 10K to like fill out a couple pieces of paper. And like, oh yeah, we're gonna do a title search and make sure that no one else owns this title. Oh, boom, 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 boom. Oh, okay.
No one
Write
owns
me a
it.
check for your closing cost is $5,484.
It's a gambit, dude.
Yeah,
it's a gambit.
It's a hustle for sure.
Yeah.
I think it would. You know, then you just have loans. You could have much more fluid transactions. I mean, getting a mortgage is like.
It's a logistical fucking nightmare,
I hate
dude.
Like,
it's so. With how much I just got a home equity line of credit for my primary house, which by the way, I'm gonna dump it all into a cryptocurrency. don't take this as financial advice by any means. Not financial advice, but that's what I'm gonna do. Anyway, for me to get that home equity line of credit, dude, I own 23 properties. I had to provide insurance documentation for all 23 properties, profit and loss statements for all 23 properties, you know, profit and loss statements for all the different businesses. And it's just, it took me a whole day of just gathering paperwork to get a home equity line of credit for, you know, a house that I have a ton of equity in, and I want a small piece of that. Anyway,
it's absurd.
It is. It's a very broken system.
What do you think about, and again, I've looked into some of this stuff. What do you think about like taking investment opportunities, tokenizing them? I think there's an exchange called T0 that does this, where it's like it literally is a security, but it's fractionalized. Like say that it's like a $20 million like apartment complex. Like you can put that opportunity up on a blockchain and just have people buy, like, you know, grandma can buy $200 worth of that with low risk.
Seen that.
And then you could like 5,000 people could go in on the deal, and like, you know, you could use the blockchain to distribute the profits accordingly. Easily, like mathematically, transparently.
Yes, I think that's a brilliant idea. I think a few things, right? I think the individuals that would be open to investing in something like that are the individuals that are already in the cryptocurrency space.
Yeah.
And the individuals that are in the cryptocurrency space are not going to settle for the 13 to 15% annualized return that property is going to give. They're going to take that money and go, right? So that's, and that's,
I don't, you know, I'm pretty, I would consider something like that to diversify a little bit, but it's in a native way that I like it. Like I'm used to like dealing with transactions.
Sure.
Like, you know, if you operate on Ethereum or Solana, like you're used to just like being able to just, you don't have to ask permission. You don't have to do all this stuff. You can just permissionally move funds around and like not have to be encumbered by, you know, Big Brother and, you know, all these, you know, you don't have to ask permission. It's beautiful. It's like true.
Right.
So for me, like, you know, I think I would be interested in something like that, you know, if it was easy to access.
It would be cool. I just think it won't, like, for example, I'm a real estate guy, right? And over the years, like I have my portfolio is made up of this. I always used to see as real estate as the safe asset class. It's steady, it's consistent, it pays out every single month. I get some tax benefits as the U.S. government prints money, which it will naturally inflate and appreciate over time. And then I have my cryptocurrency, which in the past, I used to see that as highly volatile, high risk, high return. As time goes on, I'm looking at both of these asset classes and I'm reconsidering. I'm like, hold on. My cryptocurrency has far outperformed my real estate.
Yeah.
It's completely liquid. I could stake it somewhere and get a pretty damn good return comparable to what I'm getting in real estate. And it has none of the fucking hassle involved. There's no tenants. There's not shit breaking.
I love it.
So the more and more time I'm in the space, the more I'm like, dude, maybe I should sell that property and dump it in Solana or Chainlink, right? So I think the people that are interested in concepts like that are people that are already in the cryptocurrency space And I think it would, I don't know. But I like the idea. I think it's a great concept. I think it's a much more efficient way of doing a syndication, and so you don't got to go get attorney, start up an LLC, and, you create a token, you divide it out. It's fully transparent. Everybody sees it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. That does already exist, does it not?
Yeah. So there's a company called T0, but I mean, it's considered a security. So there is like a lot of regulation around it. You have to be approved to get on T0. I mean, it's a whole thing, which, maybe isn't such a bad thing in the sense of like, if it's an actual security, maybe there should be, we do need to make sure that nobody's, stealing the money. Like, hey, the property really made, 50 grand, but they're only putting 40 grand into the pool. You know what I'm saying? Like, there has to be like a level of
some sort of oversight,
because the blockchain itself, is a tool, right? So like you have to trust the numbers that they put in and the reports they publish. There should be oversight there to make sure that that's legitimate, right?
Yeah.
Which makes sense, right? For an actual security, when it's a decentralized token and you're staking it and providing security in a computer and doing so, like, you don't need regulation for that. The system regulates itself, right? It's not a security. Yeah. Despite what Gary Gensler, the terror he's inflicted on our industry for the past 4 years and with this current administration,
he's on his way out.
Thank God. God. How do you feel about, so like for me, I think of Bitcoin as like it's like my savings account, right? Mm-hmm. Historically, real estate has been that. Like people buy, I've heard a lot of speeches about this. I think it was Michael Saylor who was talking about this recently. It's like, somebody who's wealthy, they want to buy a bunch of properties because they know that it can't really get debased, and historically it's going to go up over time. Yeah. Do you see Bitcoin demonetizing that a little bit? Because you described perfectly my thought, which is the liquidity and not having the cost of upkeep. And, is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing?
I think it will over time. I think probably 50, 60, 70 years from now, the concept of an individual person owning real estate like they do today, I think the U.S. will become more and more like Europe, where I think the real estate will get gobbled up by the big players, the BlackRock.
We're seeing that now.
And we're seeing that now. These guys would never, like 20, 30 years ago, they would focus on apartment buildings, office buildings, commercial buildings. Mm-hmm. They're going out and buying whole single-family neighborhoods now.
Where do they get all this money from? I mean, was it perhaps the money printers that just like COVID hits and all of a sudden, anybody who's politic, we call this in if you study the history of money in economics, we call this the Cantillon effect. So the Cantillon effect is those who are closest to the money printers. So the people who have government, right? They're the first ones to access that new money. Hey, we just printed up 20 trillion. Hey, we're going to lend it to you at 1%. And you can lend it to the smaller banks at 3%. Yeah. And they can lend it to the credit unions or whoever else at 6%. And then you turn around and, hey, we're going to give you guys all credit cards at 30%.
By the time it gets to the average everyday person, they're completely fucked.
Yeah.
And I've kind of noticed that in the last few years, I've gotten into an asset class, which is alternative investments, essentially like funds and syndications and things like that. And I think it's fascinating that, like your average everyday person gets to invest when that stock goes public. By that time, dude, so much money was already made by the players. You're buying what I mean? Like it's kind of
such a rigged game.
And the crazy thing is, and listen to this, this is the thing that, like, the deeper I got into it, I'm like, oh my God, the system is so fucked. So you could go to Vegas with $250,000 of your own savings and you could gamble it all away.
In 5 minutes. Lose all your money.
You could lose all your money. But if you want to invest in your friend's company or your friend's idea or a syndication or a fund, you can't unless you're an accredited investor. It is fucked.
Yeah, it's wild.
It's
you can buy lottery tickets and do all this stuff, but,
right?
But Big Brother, we have to get permission to do a business.
Yeah,
it's the whole thing is totally absurd. It's absolutely absurd, right?
Yeah.
There should be. I mean, they gotta fix this. The easiest way I can think of is like just do a simple financial literacy test. Let people take the test. If you pass the test, then you do what you want to do with your money and your assets on your own risk. It's that simple, right?
That's it.
Because there's no test to go gamble in the casino or go buy the lottery ticket. But they're getting their cut. That's the difference, right?
Yeah.
They get their cut. They get their taxes from it, which is, but you'd think they'd get their taxes from it anyway if the business is successful, right? But yeah, I mean, it's wild.
Yeah.
You've mentioned that our generation needs to learn how to play this game. What critical financial literacy components are missing from traditional education, and how can crypto help bridge this gap?
man.
We kind of touched on it a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, there is no financial education. At least it wasn't when I went to school. You know, we graduated in what, 2010?
I mean, that was a daycare, bro.
Dude,
that was like government daycare.
I learned nothing. You know what I mean? I learned I learned zero financial literacy up until like I had to learn that on my own. I don't know how it is in school today.
It's probably much of the same. I mean, it's more of just a kind of a giant daycare.
I don't think that's done on accident. I don't think, like, the more I thought about this, I think the government, I mean, think about it, right? Like, not everybody could be multimillionaires and billionaires and super successful. You know what I mean? Like, we need people to work and do the everyday jobs. So the more I thought about this, I'm like, yeah, I don't know if the government wants that. I don't know if they want financial literacy in schools.
Because then you start to question everything, right?
Yeah, because then you're like, wait, what's the point of being in this fucking school in the first place? So I think the best thing that people can do is take ownership. I've learned over the years that I used to trust the government a lot more than I do today. It's up to you. You have to take full ownership of your life, of your finances, of your health, of every concept, and you can't rely on an institution to provide that for you. You have to take ownership of that. And I think we still very much live in the best country in the world where you could go on YouTube and learn everything that you need to learn to become financially free. Like, dude, my parents never earned more than $40,000, $50,000 a year. I became a millionaire by 28. I had, you know what I mean? And no formal education, no college education. And every piece of information is out there. It's just that individual needs to sit down and be like, okay, I'm going to take ownership of this aspect of my life and I'm going to figure it out. And you will. And it won't be that hard. You know, it's not that hard. But it's up to an individual to do that. If you rely on the government or school or college, you're going to be very disappointed. So
somebody with limited resources, what would you do? What was the first thing you do?
Dude, if I had looking back, if I had limited resources, I would try to get around where the money is. And what that means is I would find someone who has money, who has a lot of resources, who's doing something cool that you're interested in. And I would approach that person and say, hey, let me work for you. I'll work for you for free. How can I help? How can I get involved? And look to provide value first. And if you can't do that, then pay for some sort of mentor that has done what you're looking to do. Someone, like, really vet the person, make sure they're not bullshit, make sure they're the real deal, and pay that money for mentorship. And I've gone to a few of these masterminds, and I still go every year. You know, I'm always learning, I'm always paying for access. And what's crazy is over the last couple of years, I went to this. It was in Miami for Eric Spofford. Eric is this entrepreneur that I think he sold his company for something like $50 million or something crazy. And he did a mastermind at his house. The mastermind was like $2,500. But what was cool is I met a few of like 20, 21-year-old kids there. And I'm like, dude, you paid $2,500 to be here. Good for you. And I was chatting with these kids, and I'm like, instead of paying $100,000 for college, they're like, I'm going to take this money and I'm going to pay that money to people that have actually done something, that have actually built real businesses and made real money in the area that I'm looking to do it in. And those kids are going to be much more successful at 24 while their colleagues are just now getting out of college with a couple $100,000 in debt. Yeah. I'm willing to make that bet any day. Right. So I think mentorship is a great way to do it. And I think access is huge. Just getting around, like, for example, dude, if I wasn't exposed to you, if we didn't have this relationship, I probably wouldn't be in cryptocurrency. I probably would have missed out on a lot of money that right. So the relationships and the access that you have really matter. So that's what I would recommend.
So, bro, when are you gonna move back to Florida here? I know you spent a lot of time out in Chaz, the autonomous region of Seattle.
It's funny because I think growing up in Florida, as you get older and you see other places, the more you start to appreciate, especially this part of Florida, Naples and surrounding areas. Yeah, dude, like you said, I've been in Seattle for 12 years, 12, 13 years now. And the city has really changed during the time I've been there. I mean, it was always a more liberal area and state, but in the last few years, I mean, it's gotten so far to the left, And like you mentioned, Chaz is this. They took over this neighborhood called Capitol Hill during COVID and during that whole thing, and they basically turned that area into their own city. Like they blocked it off. No cops were allowed. And they were just rioting and breaking into different, I had an office there at the time. They broke into our office like 2 times, stole a bunch of shit. And my house got broken into. They stole over $40,000 worth of stuff. And then about 4 months ago, we've been in a new office in this area called Fremont. And by the way, these are all like A+ buildings, like secured, very nice. And our Fremont office got broken into, and there's still a few iPads and a few other things. Man. That's
insane.
So it's and it's interesting because you kind of get used to it after you've been there for a little while. It takes you kind of going to Florida and being like, oh, there's a cop car in every fucking corner. You will not get, you know what I mean? You won't get away with that type of shit.
I even noticed that we went out to eat like earlier, and you're like, I'm right outside the window, and my car window's open. And you're like, bro, you gotta close the window. I'm like, dude, no, this is Naples. We're fine.
Yeah, you can't get caught slipping like that.
Seattle. But man, that's why like 4 or 5 times you've been robbed in like building, office. I mean, that is just, it blows my mind. I mean, it almost like just, God, I couldn't imagine, man. I mean, that's like insane. Absolutely insane.
On that note, I have a really good buddy of mine that he recently moved to Tijuana, Mexico. And he was raised in Seattle, lived in Seattle for years. He lived in San Diego for years. And he went back home to Seattle to visit, and they broke the window to his car and stole his backpack and a bunch of shit. Long story short, he posted something on Instagram. He's like, no joke, I feel safer in Tijuana, Mexico than I do in San Diego or in Seattle. Wow. And that's a crazy thought, and it's very true. It's like, I could see how that's true. So we got to clean it up.
Yeah, man, that's wild. Do you feel like that's affected the real estate market at all?
Oh, for sure. In certain areas, it has. I think the Seattle market is propped up. So this is a fun stat, right? For every tech job a city brings in, there's 3 to 4 supporting jobs that come with it. Mm-hmm. So what props up a market like the Bay Area or Seattle is the tech jobs. Tech companies are there. They're
Microsoft.
They're Microsoft, Amazon, Expedia. These guys are bringing in a lot of jobs and hire a lot of techies and high income earners. And naturally, you're going to get 3 to 4 supporting jobs for every hire that they bring. But for the most part, real estate has done really well in Seattle. Downtown has gotten so bad, and condos kind of really took a hit in the city. Like I have a few gorgeous listings right in downtown Seattle, $1.6 million penthouse, and another one's a $1.3 million penthouse that we can't sell because you're in this gorgeous building and you are in your patio and you look down and you see people just strung out, holding a knife, tweaking. And it's very visible there, especially in downtown. So it's bad.
People don't want to see that, man. That sucks.
Yeah.
I think it's part of a large pattern of what we've seen the past couple of years. If you look at some of the graphs and charts, it's like California, Washington, New York, like hundreds of thousands, even like probably over millions of people at this point have fled those states, and they're going to Texas and Florida and stuff like that.
Oh, for sure, dude.
Yeah,
for sure. And it's and I mean, compared to the Bay Area, Seattle's doing pretty good, dude. The Bay Area has gotten so bad, so bad. I mean, you go to downtown Seattle and you see like a bunch of boarded up stores. They're just kind of closed up, like who's going to go shop at a Rolex downtown when you got 20 tweakers outside? It's like, we're setting up shop elsewhere. We'll close the store and go somewhere else. So yeah.
Have you, there's been so many videos of just like hundreds of people running in the stores and just like ransacking them and like no consequences. Did they do the same thing in Seattle that they did in California where like if you steal anything under $10,000, like it's just not even really a crime? It's not a felony.
Yeah.
It's like just,
So there's the stat. I forgot exactly how much they were spending. I mean, it was millions and millions and millions of dollars that just in downtown Seattle that these big corporations had to spend in additional security. Every Target you go into, you have 3 to 4 private security cops.
Are they even doing anything though? Like I heard that like they're not even allowed to do anything. Like it's like they won't even.
I've never stole a bunch of shit, so I'm not entirely sure. But I know. For example, there's a Target in downtown Seattle where like anytime you go there now, you got 2 patrol cars and you got 2 to 3 guys. Fully loaded and they ain't fucking around, So I'm sure like I'm sure these stores got tired of being robbed. So they're like, okay, we're better off. We're getting robbed so much. We're better off hiring additional security because it's probably cheaper than, being robbed every single day.
Yeah. I mean, if you can take up to $10,000, I mean, that's a lot of PlayStations. That's a lot of TVs.
A lot of money.
That's
a lot
wild.
of money. I think we've seen the worst of it though. It's starting to clean up. It's starting to get better. But dude,
great experiment on incentives. I mean, you give so many people the incentives to do this, like decriminalize.
That's exactly it, dude. You if you take
show me the incentives and I'll show you the outcome.
That's exactly right, dude. And and if you don't have a carrot and a stick for human beings, any human being, like this is what you're gonna see.
Yeah, so. I mean, we are animals after all.
Yeah.
And sadly, when these people get addicted to these drugs, that it's like. A lot of them lose their free will, and it's like they need to be probably institutionalized, hospitalized. I mean, someone's having a heart attack. The way I always think about it is like, if someone's having a heart attack on the street, you're not just going to let them die, right?
Right.
When someone's literally psychotic and out of their fucking mind, I mean, they need to be treated medically. I mean, that's, they don't have free will at this point. Guy swinging around a knife, like you said, I mean, that individual is a threat and a danger to himself and society.
Right.
He has no free will. He's hallucinating on drugs, whatever it may be, mental illness. Needs to be in a psychiatric treatment facility.
Needs to be dealt with.
I mean, in the amount of the loss of tax revenue, the amount of destruction, the real estate market, sales, people wanting to even live in these places, fleeing. I mean, that cost is so insanely high that like you could build probably an entire reservation of like mental health, dude, with like steam domes and cold plunges and psychologists and like organic farming. I mean, you could have like literally some place in Nevada where hey, you either go to jail or you go to treatment. Like, they take you here and like you get to live and
dude, and
recover.
Some places have done that really, really well. Like if you go to Austin, Texas, a buddy of mine was supporting this organization. Forget the name. I donated and I helped them raise some money, where they build like little houses, like $25,000, $30,000 houses in this community for recovering drug addicts and homeless. And like they're really putting, and like you said, they hire professionals and doctors to come in there, give a person, 30 to 60 days to get them sobered up, get them up and running, to help place these individuals in jobs and help them put them back into society as productive members of society. And I think, dude, the United States of America, like we should, like, why are we not doing that in Seattle?
Yeah.
Like we're a very wealthy city. If we really wanted to clean that shit up, we're smart people. We could make that happen. But it makes you kind of question, like, why haven't we?
I just think it's part of, and this might piss people off, but I think part of the, it's a cultural thing. It's like this idea of entitlement and, the right has sort of embraced this accountability mindset and the left has embraced this victim mindset, this victim mentality. I hate to say it, but and it may come from good intentions, right? I think like, a lot of times people want to empathize and, they're emotionally want to, help somebody, but you're really not helping them. You're just enabling a terribly destructive behavior to themselves and to society.
Yeah.
It's sad.
Yeah, it is sad.
A lot of these people really lose free will and they've just become just like you see some of these people. I mean, if you go to San Francisco, I mean, I saw videos of like you walk down the street and it's like The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
I mean, these people are on this crazy drug that's like one guy's like sideways, like literally like a 90-degree right angle. I mean, just sitting there and there's like 100 of people on the street just like not moving, like just.
Yeah,
I mean, like,
dude, I've seen some crazy shit.
That's insane.
I've seen people Pike Place, which is the main tourist attraction.
I remember when you brought me there with that pig and we took a picture there.
Main tourist attraction. I'm downtown just about every day. I saw a dude just sitting there, just shooting up, and kids just walking by.
Oh, man.
And it's...
We're in the United States of America. Look at this. We are literally 2.5 miles from where the Declaration of Independence was signed.
I haven't seen it like this anywhere in the world. I've been to 85 countries.
They became heroin addicts. My brother was one of them, 12 years old. That's the average age. Go ahead, Weedy. No? No. But do you know what's available?
Yeah.
In 10 minutes, we can have you in a bed.
Oh, this is
10 minutes. Just remember the rock. Okay. Right down the street. You know where we're at.
Yep.
Okay?
I remember.
All right, my man.
Thank you very
much. All right, pal.
It's
Yeah,
sad,
it's very
dude.
sad.
It's mental illness is what it...
Yeah.
Oh, there's Como News. Let's
Yeah,
see
it's a
what they
lot.
got there.
It's a lot of.
Dude, there's this...
Well, the city attorney's office tells me today the judge's
Seattle looks
order
like
does
shit.
not prohibit the city from
Dude, you gotta
removing
check
encampments,
this out.
and they plan to appeal that order. A win for the ACLU of Washington, as a judge declares parts of Seattle's current rules for encampment removal unconstitutional. In the lawsuit filed, the ACLU says the city has criminalized living on virtually every parcel of city-owned land, despite a severe lack of shelter availability in Seattle. According to the ACLU, if an encampment is considered an obstruction under the city's rules, city officials are not required to give 72 hours notice for removals or provide outreach and offers of shelter. The city unlawfully...
You can't just
dude, like these little
destroy
like
and abuse.
abandoned cars and RVs. You see them everywhere, like
Yeah.
all around. Like it's funny because in Seattle, it's like in Seattle, it's so different than in Florida. Florida, you have like it's all gated communities and it's all well maintained. In Seattle, people come to Seattle and they want to shop for real estate. They're like, okay, what are the good neighborhoods here that that I'm going to be safe? And it's like, dude, even in the good neighborhoods, you're going to get shit like that.
That's wild.
It is. Unless you go to the east side of Seattle, which is you got to cross the bridge. It's a 15, 20-minute drive. And the east side is like a cleaned up, put together version. But in Seattle, in the city, dude, you get that everywhere. You get it everywhere.
Wild.
Yeah.
Let's change gears a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about the new company we just started. So my company, Consensus Protocol, we've recently, I brought on a new hire and we're doing these curated mining setups. Let's talk about it a little bit.
Dude, so I get this.
Because you're one of the first, we've got a couple of them set up, but you're one of the first people that was like, yeah, I'll do it with you.
Yeah, I get a text message. This was like 2 weeks ago too. It's funny. I get a text message in the middle of the workday.
Mutual friends.
Yeah, like it was me and another one of our buddies and Matt, this group chat. Hey, I got this great opportunity for a mining operation, something along these lines. An hour later, I get a call from our buddy Max, and Max is like, dude, you want to do this thing with Matt? Like, we got to wire like $250,000 like tomorrow. And I'm like, wait, hold on. What is it? What are we investing in? Well, it's this mining operation. It's in Mexico. We got to send the money to this. And I'm like, what the fuck, dude? I'm like, it sounds like I need some context before I wire $250,000 to a guy in Mexico.
So the deal was like, it was a $500,000 like deployment minimum for this, to set up basically a mining container and buy all the miners inside. Mm-hmm. And Max is like, I want to do it, but I want a partner. So I'm like, all right, well, text somebody. He's like, oh, what about Lucas? What about our friend Fuad?
Yeah.
I'm like, well, text them, see what they want to do.
Yeah. So fast forward, we did it, because Matt, his tendency is to move fast, dude, and like very little he just goes. But we were able to hop on a Zoom call and kind of get a better understanding of the project, the deal, how it works. He answered questions, and what was cool to see is, I mean, dude, like I underwrite and look at real estate deals every single week. I'm very familiar to what returns are in different funds and syndications and different asset classes. And, the fact that we could deploy that capital, the whole thing is a write-off, right? Because of the equipment. That's already massive.
Yeah.
You know, that's a massive write-off. So that's a huge win. And then the target returns are like insane, dude. You know, you're like, you can't, if I do a good real estate deal, I'm getting, you know, if buy and hold, I'm getting 15 to 20% ROI a year. That's a good buy and hold real estate deal. If I'm doing a flip, which is, you know, as you know, very risky, time consuming, you got to manage contractors, there's the market could turn and there's a lot of risk there. If I'm doing a good flip for us is, you know, 50, 60% cash on cash return. That's a good flip for us. 50, 60% cash on cash return. And, you know, we're targeting for this company a 90% yearly return. And
what's crazy is that since we did the deal, the price of Bitcoin has gone up, so that ROI is even sooner.
Right.
But I mean, you know, things move. I'm curious your thoughts, because with like real estate, like the market's going, and you know there can be like a hot market, but you know, like from day to day, like in crypto, like shit is moving quick. Like, you know, the price of miners is getting adjusted daily based on their future cash flows. Like brokers and sellers, like they're like, okay, like they're looking at the math too. They've got their projections. They're like, okay, well, it's mining the same amount of Bitcoin, but the Bitcoin just went up 10%. So it's actually mining, you know, it's gone from making $7 a day to $10 a day now, right? It's like there's, you know, so that the units get repriced based on that ROI. Yeah. It's like, you know, the prices can change quick. So I think that was really the urgency there. Bitcoin was going from like 70 to 80.
It was running.
It was running. It was like, hey, like the brokers are like, hey, if you don't close this deal, like
someone else will. It's a good deal. When you explained it, it made perfect sense, because I'm like, oh, dude, you explained it perfectly, because it's so relatable to real estate, except the returns are much higher. Yeah. But the way it's structured is like a good real estate deal will fly off the market. Yeah. You know what I mean? There's always going to be buyers for a good real estate deal. And especially when the real estate market really goes on a bull run. Yeah. Now you really see a high demand for these deals. So it's interesting to see that like all these markets ebb and flow, you know, and crypto just happens to be more volatile, it looks like. But
I mean, we rolled this out probably like 6 months ago. You know, we set up a couple LLCs and partnered with, you know, different investors, partners, you know, and then literally just like I've been telling, my pitch is like the pitch deck that we made to talk to people about it. JMD's our VP of this side of the operations, but like if you look at all of my predictions and projections and charts, now it's like I'm like, don't even change it, because now when we first made the deck, you can just see exactly what I predicted. It's like all played out. So I'm like, just leave it, John. Don't even change it. Just leave it. That way we can, you know, show like, hey, this is what the prediction was, and this is how it's played out. Yeah. And you know, as the price of Bitcoin runs up, the price of miners obviously goes up because they're making more cash flow. But you know, it's a considered, you know, you're very far out on the risk curve. It's like an alternative, you know, asset class / investment. And I get, you know, I'm plugged into my network of contacts that I've known people I've known for, you know, 10, 20 years now. Yeah. And I'm sorry, not 20 years, but like, you know, the past decade, you know, some relationships, 5 years, some like 10 years, right? And, you know, that I've done business with them. I've deployed my own machines in these different places, these different facilities, have our own facilities. And, you know, you build up these relationships in each network, and I see, you know, the deal flow, right? Like you see tons of real estate deals, like, you know, based on your experience, like which ones are really good, right? So there might be 100 deals across your desk, and you pick out, okay, these 4 or 5 are like really good ones, right? Yeah. Same thing here, right? I'll get all the deals, and I'm like, John, I like this one, I like that one, I like this one. I know these guys. I have my own machines here. I know they're good hosts. You know, I've known this guy for a long time. He's not going to charge me. Like if you're renting a house, like, you know, if you're renting a house to somebody you don't know, it's like you charge first, last, and security, right? It's like same thing with a lot of these Bitcoin hosts, right? If you want to host your miners at a data center and they don't know you, right? It's like, hey, you got to put a deposit down. You got to pay 2 months of electricity payment on those machines. Like, you know, and you got to put a security deposit down for your last pay. You got to pay last month, you know. So on $1 million deal, that can be like $200,000, right?
Right. What was really attractive about this deal is the operations guy, is that correct? Who's covering the electricity cost?
So the host themselves,
that's what you call them.
I really like this host because they risk manage their own deals. So they they might have a deployment here, a deployment there, a deployment in different location here. And what they do, instead of just profiting off of the electricity price, where it's like they're getting electricity price at like 2 cents, right? and they might sell it for 5 cents or 4 cents or 6 cents.
So they mark up the
So they just mark it up,
cost.
and then it just like guarantees them like a rate of return where they like know exactly what they're going to make, right? Whereas the investor or the miner, you know, we don't really know where the price of Bitcoin is going to be. So like some months you might make a lot, and like the electricity expense is low. Other months your margin might be really small.
Yeah.
Obviously, as we go into this bullish market, the margins are going to be increasing, and you make a massive amount of revenue during that time. Similar to like, you know, when the rents went up after COVID, right? If you own rentals, like it got juiced. You know, the rentals were making more money for that period, and then, you know, now they're starting to come down again. It's similar but more extreme in the mining market.
Yeah, and it's interesting because doing real estate for 9-10 years, I've noticed something about people that they want to invest when it's too late.
I know,
and that's the same thing I see in
that's what's
your
happening
world,
now.
right?
It's like everyone's everyone's blowing us up now to try to set up LLCs, and I'm like, guys, we got to move quick here because every time Bitcoin goes up $10,000, like on $1 million deal, that's another $100,000, $200,000 you got to pay in equipment, right? For the same piece of hardware. Yeah. So if you get in early and you buy the machine at a lower price, like you're going to be passively accumulating Bitcoin, and your machine prices are going to go up because the machines go up as well. So the value of that, there's like a lot of factors involved.
There's for me, when it comes to investing in alternative investments, I have this theory where, and I've looked into, there's some really cool stuff out there, dude. There's funds that are now investing in like NFL teams and NBA teams. And by the way, those like sports are a very profitable industry. Yeah. But for me, my theory in investing in alternative investments such as funds or syndications, it's basically this checkbox, right? Number one is, do we have a good horse? It's the horse in the jockey theory. The horse is the asset class. Asset class that we're talking about here is Bitcoin. Well, that's an asset class. That's a horse that I really believe in.
I mean, that's the best performing horse in all of humanity's history, right?
Right. And then the second question comes, who's the jockey, right? Because, for example, I've invested in a few syndications where great horse, great asset class, the jockey is a fucking idiot and fucked up the deal. So for this deal, it was a no-brainer. You know, I think you're a great jockey or a great manager for that project, and I certainly believe in an asset class. And you know, I'm going to get $250,000 in write-offs in year one that I need. Pretty so nice, it's like a no-brainer.
So speaking of that particular host, like I've had my own machines there for a very long time. We've got other, you know, LLCs with their own containers and setups there. But what I like about this host is they create different deals, right? So like one deal might be like them just like I've got machines at like 5 cents, 5.5 cents, and I'm just paying like every month I know what I'm going to pay. They don't have any of the profit,
right?
But they do another deal where like they drop the rate to like 2 cents plus like a 35% share, right, of like profit. So of your net profit, but you're guaranteed a much lower electricity rate, so you know like you're always going to be in the green,
right? And
the deal we did, I think, with yours was just a straight profit share. So like you have no responsibility for electric costs.
Very lowered risk.
So your risk is like on that. I mean, with any business, there's always risk, right?
Sure.
Like a natural disaster could come, something could happen, jurisdictional. You know, you're not in the United States, you're different. You know, but there's always different risks, right? But on this particular deal, you have a profit share it's a flat profit share. So like no matter what happens with electricity, like those machines are going to be profitable essentially forever. Like they're, you know, we might upgrade them at some point, but you know, there's no downside risk when it comes to the, you know, the cost of electricity, because the hosts themselves are absorbing that for a bigger piece of the pie, right?
Yeah.
So
very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I'm excited. I'm excited to see how this one goes and do some more deals like this. You know,
I spoke to our friend Mikey the other day, a little while ago. And he said that, you know, a long time ago we were trading Forex.
I remember that.
That was kind of like my first introduction to like markets and like understanding and learning from
I was talking to my girl about that the other day.
An old Indian dude that taught us.
And at the time, I hated that we did that. Now looking back, I'm so glad that we did.
Such a cool experience.
I got so many lessons from that at the time I didn't see them as valuable, but today I'm like, no, that had a huge impact.
Yeah.
What was Mikey saying?
So Mikey was saying that I think this has got to be like 2010, 2011, like well before I ever heard of Bitcoin. Like I didn't hear about it till like I graduated. Like I never really like understood it or heard about it, like when I first heard about it, I'm like watching a YouTube video about like mining. I'm like, what the heck is this guy doing? What is this, right? And Mikey said that you and him had listened to a podcast about Bitcoin.
We did.
And
we did.
I didn't. I did.
I remember
crazy.
this. I remember this.
I wish
listen
you guys
to
would
this.
have like
Listen to this, dude.
drawn my attention towards it.
I was sitting. So I had moved from Seattle back to Florida, and at the time I was still a bartender, and I was living in this guy's house for 2 to 3 months, just trading Forex. That's all we did, right? And I eventually ran out of savings because we weren't making any fucking money.
The
and
guy
he
was
wasn't
like,
paying
here's
us.
my strategy. You can live in the house.
Yeah,
like,
his strategy
we're going to work
fucking
24
sucked.
hours around the clock.
Oh, dude.
In 8 hour
We
shifts.
were like slaves. It was just not a good time. Anyway, so your dad helped me out and got me like an office job where I was just doing some papers in one of his clinics or whatever. And I would sit and just do very repetitive work. So I'd plug in headphones just to distract myself. And me and Mikey were listening to these podcasts. I don't even remember the podcast. And it was so early on. It was like the first few episodes in regards to this new token, Bitcoin, and how it's going to be a new thing and it's going to be a new currency. And dude, listen to this. I was so excited by it. And I was broke, but I was going to take, a couple $100 and buy some. And you know why? The reason why I didn't?
Why?
It's because I couldn't figure out how to fucking buy it, dude.
Yeah.
You needed like a MetaMask wallet because back then there was no Coinbase.
You'd have to have a custodial wallet or a non-custodial wallet. And you had to do like the exchange at the time was called Mt. Gox and BitInstant. It would have required some work. Right?
And I tried, and like I'm the worst with tech.
I wish you would have like.
Dude, I tried. I remember I genuinely tried for like a week to buy some, and I couldn't fucking figure it out. Dude, if I would have put a couple $100 into it, I would have been very well off.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, things happen at the perfect time. It wasn't my time.
That's true, Hey, stuff happens, and I think we've done very well for ourselves.
Yeah, I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining.
Your story really embodies the American dream. What final message do you have for our audience here?
Just do it, dude.
Just
fucking do it. I think a lot of people are not truly honest with what they want. They don't really, and what I mean by that is they might have an idea of what they want and they shut it down too soon because they start thinking of how am I going to do it, or perhaps it's internal of limiting beliefs of the way you were raised or things people said to you, and they put thresholds and caps and limits on the things that they want out of life. And I think something that happens as you get older is you realize that we have a very limited time here, and with that limited time, you don't have time to hold back, dude. Like you have to sit down and really think about what do I want out of this one existence, and just fucking go, and you have always, dude, talk about somebody who from a young age that has been you to a T. And I think, and I'm very grateful for our relationship and our friendship, because I think that aggressiveness and that carelessness from what other people might think and what the environment and what other people say you can't, you never gave a fuck about any of that. You look at it and you're like, I want to do this fucking shit, and you go, and you've always been like, and to this day, it's an example of all the things that you're working on. Some of it don't make sense, but you're like, that's cool, I'm gonna do it. And I think over the years, I've picked up a lot of that from you, and so that's the advice I'd give people, man. Figure out what you want out of life and just go, just do it.
I'm proud of you, brother.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Where can our audience connect with you if they have any real estate opportunities or want to learn more about what you're doing?
Yeah, hit me up on Instagram. Instagram is Luke_is_winning. Send me a DM. We'd love to connect with you guys, and thanks for having me, man. I'm really, really excited about the future. I'm really excited about what you guys are building here, and very grateful for my brother. Love you, man.
Lucas, it's been a pleasure.
All right.